Things are getting bizarre in the Lori Vallow trial. A search is done in the San Francisco tech boss homicide case. The Parkland shooting judge, may have ruined her career as a judge. Murdaugh just can't get a break, and neither can his friend. And then finally, our dumb criminal of the day. Let's talk about it. Good day, everyone. My name is Scott Reich, and this is CrimeTalk. Thanks for joining us. You know the drill. Subscribe if you haven't. Like if you do. Leave me a comment. Hit that little bell for notifications. And remember, you can listen to us on any of your favorite podcasting apps as well. All right. Let's also support the people that, support CrimeTalk.
As a pet owner, you want to give your furry friend the very best. That's why Baked in Colorado's CBD-infused dog treats are the perfect choice. These delicious treats not only taste great, but they also provide a wide range of health benefits for your pet. CBD has been shown to have many positive effects on dogs, including reducing anxiety, alleviating pain and inflammation, and improving overall wellness. Baked in Colorado's treats are infused with premium, full-spectrum CBD oil, meaning your pet will benefit from the whole plant extract. Not only that, but Baked in Colorado's treats are made with all-natural human-grade ingredients, so you can feel good about what you're giving your pet. They're also free from wheat, corn, and soy, making them a great option for dogs with food sensitivities. Baked in Colorado CBD-infused dog treats are the perfect way to support your pet's health and well-being. With various flavors, including peanut butter, pumpkin, and bacon, your dog will love them too. So why wait? Head to www.bakedincolorado.com today and order your dog a bag of these delicious and nutritious treats. Your pet will thank you for it.
Now, I know we have a lot of super fans, all right, when it comes to CrimeTalk. We have people that leave us a comment every day that have literally been with us from the beginning. But I'm going to give a shout out for a super fan because, I know someone associated with them, and they said, oh my gosh, Scott is this person's favorite channel that she watches. So I want to give a big shout out to Glow, also known as Gloria Holbert. Thanks for watching. Your family loves you, and they asked me to give you a big shout out. So there you go. All right, let's get to the docket. More bizarreness in Idaho. So Thursday, prosecutors played a phone call in which Lori Vallow's husband, Chad Daybell, reportedly gave her brother, Alex Cox, a blessing following the murders of Lori Vallow's two children. Now, during this 15-minute call, Daybell was heard telling Alex Cox that he was a great warrior who was selected to protect his sister. And Daybell also mentions that his soul is cleansed. That's right. Anyway, Daybell also allegedly told Alex Cox that he may have already assisted us in ways that cannot be repaid. Yes, you had to go to great depths to achieve great heights. Now, as you may recall, Alex Cox, what is Lori Vallow's brother, died of natural causes in 2019, the same year that Vallow's son and daughter, JJ and Ty Lee, respectively, disappeared and ultimately wound up deceased. Well, 9 months later, the remains were found on Chad Daybell's property. So, and Lori Vallow was also charged in Arizona with conspiring to kill her fourth husband, Charles Vallow, who Cox fatally shot in 2019. When the children's bodies were discovered, Ty Lee's remains were reportedly dismembered and burned, and her remains were located near a burn pit, while JJ was in a plastic bag wrapped in plastic. His face, arms, wrists, and feet were wrapped with duct tape. Now, as you may recall, Lori Vallow has said that, hey, I didn't know Alex Cox was going to do anything, or what Chad Daybell was doing at all, or suggesting. Because the prosecution makes it sound like, hey, it sure would be nice if the kids weren't around, and Alex Cox basically is just like, hold my beer, let me go take care of this. So Lori Vallow has said that she was with Melanie Gibb, David Warwick, and her husband, soon-to-be husband at the time, Chad Daybell, when her son and daughter died in her brother's apartment in Rexbury, Idaho. Vallow also alleges that she was in Hawaii when Tammy Daybell was killed at her husband's home in Idaho, and therefore, obviously, she is not guilty. So now that we got that resolved, I guess we can all just go home now. No, that's not the case. Conspiracy, complicity, you can suggest, aid, encourage, or abet if you didn't come to an agreement. We'll see what the jury ultimately concludes. But things continue to get weird. As a lot of people know, and it's come out at the preliminary hearing, not a lot of new information has come out at trial just yet. But Lori Vallow believed that she was involved in a so-called doomsday group and allegedly told a friend that her children had become zombies. And the only way to get rid of the zombies was to exorcise their bodies of evil spirits, and, well, that was to kill them. And then things got a little more weird when Zulema Pastanis testified for the prosecution. And apparently it came up that she may have had a drug conviction in Arizona back in the 90s. The defense basically said, apparently we're not going to go into it. But like I said, Zulema was charged in 1998 with a felony drug possession. And the defense argues it wasn't appropriate for Zulema's attorneys to be here as she was not licensed to practice law in Idaho. And the defense, like I said, agreed that they were not going to bring up the prior conviction. Now, Zulema's attorney is here for aid and counsel, is what the prosecutor said, and that there was zero evidence that Zulema will take the Fifth Amendment, exercise her Fifth Amendment rights of self-incrimination. And her attorney was just simply here out of an abundance of caution. Now, Zulema was offered limited use immunity that goes back some 4 years and continues through this date. Now, Zulema's attorney, a guy by the name of Garrett Smith, who also represents Melanie and Ian Pawlowski, was present. And like I said, Zulema Pastanis was married to Alex Cox for only 2 weeks before he died. And the testimony that came out as it relates to Zulema was that she met Lori Vallow back in 2018 at Melanie Gibbs' home. Melanie apparently was having a meeting at her house, and she was invited Zulema to come over and see Lori Vallow speak. Apparently, Zulema and Melanie met at church and were in the same ward. And then when Zulema met Lori at Melanie's house, Lori testified that angels had visited her, and including the angel of Moroni, and that she was a personal witness of Jesus Christ. Zulema stated in her testimony, when someone is getting visitations from heavenly beings, it would mean this person has a very high spiritual standing. They're very righteous, and they're spiritually above other people. Now, Zulema says it was significant when Lori said that she was a witness of Jesus Christ, because it means Lori would have actually seen Jesus, and this would have been the highest spiritual experience a person could possibly have. Lori said that angels put names in the computer for her to take to the temple, and Zulema says that she believed Lori. Now, Zulema said during a trip to St. George, Utah, that they sat next to each other in the car, and that's when their friendship really developed. And they were going to a conference on preparing the people to teach you how to better prepare for anything that might happen, disasters, preparing for the second coming of Jesus Christ. And Zulema also met Chad Daybell at a prior conference, and she saw him again at that St. George, Utah event. At that conference, apparently Chad was trying to give Zulema the information, but she says Chad and Lori did not want Melanie to hear what he was going to say. Later, Chad apparently called Zulema to tell her about her prior lives. Chad said that there was a way that he rated people with light and darkness on a light and dark scale. Come on, you guys can play along. You have that scale at home too, right? Yeah. Anyway, Zulema says that her thoughts were a little bit jumbled, and she got a little confused on the stand today, but when they were talking about her prior lives. She says that Chad told her she was Lori's daughter, and that Zulema had been assaulted and killed at the age of 14, and her body, Zulema, doesn't recall how Lori explained where she got the information, but Zulema assumes that it came from Chad because he had given Zulema her light and dark scale rating. She apparently remembered the Lamantis, and that she was killed at the same time Lori was killed, when Lori was her mother. Zulema doesn't recall how Lori explained where she got this information. I don't know. Could be like she just made it all up or something. Anyway, Zulema assumes it came from Chad because, Chad could give Zulema her light and dark schedule rating And during a lunch, Zulema was told that Charles was possessed by a dark spirit named Garrett. She said that Charles was acting different and more organized than before. He was a completely different person and looked shorter than before. Hey, that's her testimony, not mine, ladies and gentlemen. He was shrinking, apparently. Anyway, Zulema said that all the women believed that what they were doing had value, and Lori was very convincing and has a charming way of expressing things that are believable. And Lori had expressed before that heavenly beings had visited her, and if someone is telling the truth about that, why would you question them? You just assume, okay, apparently, according to this witness, if somebody says they're being visited by Jesus, that you just believe them. Sometimes people are a little more skeptical of that. Now, don't get me wrong. If Jesus was coming again and somebody said that it was him, he'd probably get locked up these days. But, you got to trust but verify. Anyway, we'll wait and see. It gets bizarre. If you haven't done so, I urge you to listen to the trial testimony. Today's testimony will come out this evening, and we will get that up for you as soon as possible so you can spend your weekend binge listening to the trial of Lori Vallow. We've put everything up that we have to date. Anyway, it seems as though the nonsense continues. Now, I know some people are going to say this is religious stuff, but this is just a little weird. And I don't know if somebody should be getting like the Dumb Criminal of the Year award based upon this, saying that they killed their kids because dark forces, or should the witnesses like Miss Zulema be saying that she should get an award for believing this stuff? I don't know, but it continues. Next on the docket, they searched the house of the San Francisco tech boss homicide suspect. That's right. Police executed a search warrant at a luxury apartment building where the sister of the suspect in the murder of the Cash App founder Bob Lee owns a home. The authorities did, in fact, confirm via a press conference that the arrest of tech boss Nima Momeni, that they had executed 3 search warrants in the case. In addition to permission to search Momeni's home, authorities presented a warrant at the Millennium Tower, a high-rise residential building in the south of Market District. And Momeni's sister, Kazar Momeni, and her husband, plastic surgeon Dr. Dino Elasani, are listed as the owners of the building, or the unit in that building. The upscale address is just down the street from One Hotel San Francisco, where the 43-year-old Lee was staying at the time for his residence when he last sold it back in 2016 for roughly $2.7 million. We're going to see how that one develops. Remember, a lot of people said, let's kind of wait and see. We waited to see. It wasn't some homeless person. It was another tech guy that did it, allegedly. We'll give everybody the presumption of innocence. Next, this is why judges need to keep their opinions to themselves. It could basically ruin your career. So the Florida Supreme Court has granted a death row inmate's request to disqualify the judge hearing his appeal. Why, you may say? Well, based in part on her interactions with his same prosecutors in the Nicholas Cruz mass slaying trial. Do you remember that? The Nicholas Cruz case? Remember where the judge was upset that he didn't get death? Let's see what the Florida Supreme Court has to say. So in an April 13th ruling in the case of Randy Tunador versus the state of Florida, the Supreme Court justices in Florida noted that the law does not require Tunador to show that the judge is actually biased or be unable to be impartial. Rather, the question of disqualification focuses on those matters from which a litigant may reasonably question a judge's impartiality rather than the judge's perception of her ability to act fairly and impartially. So Tunador, who was convicted in 2014 of killing Nova Southeastern University professor Joseph Morrissey, noted that the 17th Circuit Judge Elizabeth Shearer hugged Assistant State Attorney Stephen Klinger and family members of the victims in open court after the Cruz verdict. 2 days later, while off the record at a status hearing in the case, Shearer exchanged sympathetic comments with Klinger, ostensibly about the Cruz trial, Tunador's claims. Now, Tunador filed a November 21st motion to disqualify Judge Shearer due to the appearance of impropriety and actual bias. And under the facts stated in this motion, any capital defendant would have objectively well-founded reasonable fear that he would not receive a fair hearing, as alleged in the motion. And the Florida Rules of General Practice and Judicial Administration gave Shearer only two options: to find the motion legally sufficient and disqualify herself, or find the motion legally insufficient. Well, guess what Judge Shearer did? She found the motion legally insufficient. The Supreme Court justices disagreed. And the court said, in granting a writ of prohibition, justices quoted extensively from the Florida Rules of General Practice and Judicial Administration. And it says, quote, the crucial facts sufficient to create a well-founded fear, the justices wrote, are the hugging of the prosecutor by Judge Shearer in the courtroom while still wearing a robe. After that, at the Cruz trial and the personal exchange between the judge and the prosecutor in Tunador's hearing, the court concluded that the combination of the certain circumstances contained in the allegation in the Tunador's motion regarding the actions of Judge Shearer in the Cruz case on November 2nd, 2022, and in Tunador's case on November 4th, 2022, would create a reasonable, prudent person of well-founded fear of not receiving a fair or impartial trial, and the justices in Florida directed the circuit court to reassign Tunador's case. That's right. This is why judges make no comment other than maybe at sentencing. You don't go hugging prosecutors. You don't go embrace the family members. You are abandoning your role as a fair and impartial judicial officer at that point. If you want to go be a prosecutor, step down off the bench, resign your judgeship, and go be a prosecutor. You don't get to be one from the bench. Judges don't get to be sympathetic. Yes, they can be polite, but their job is to be fair and impartial. And perception is reality. So I think the Florida Supreme Court did this correctly. But guess what? Why would anyone who is in her courtroom that has a defendant label behind their name think that this judge is going to be fair and partial to anyone? She's basically ruined her career, and I'm sure there's going to be a lot more motions for this. Bad mistake, Judge. I mean, she did a good job in the Cruz case. She really did. A couple points I was a little surprised by her. The public defenders didn't like her at all. And, you can't pick sides. You're a judge. Your job is to call balls and strikes. You can't do that. Resign and go be a prosecutor. Next on the docket, Alex Murdaugh just can't get a break, and neither can his friends. So remember Russell Lafitte? He was the CEO of the Palmetto State Bank, and he was convicted by a jury on 6 separate financial crimes in federal court, specifically bank fraud, conspiracy to commit wire fraud and bank fraud, and misapplication of bank funds. And the jury said that he was responsible for $680,000 of those funds that were paid directly to Murdaugh's former law firm, and that $1.25 million was unlawfully lent to him personally. Well, and as you may recall, on February 23rd of 2023, Mr. Alex Murdaugh explicitly stated for the first time in sworn testimony that he did not participate in a conspiracy with Mr. Lafitte because Mr. Lafitte did not participate in any of the financial crimes. And Mr. Murdaugh took full responsibility for his actions and testified that Mr. Lafitte did nothing wrong and didn't have any knowledge of Mr. Murdaugh's criminal activity. And so the defense filed a motion for new information based upon this, which would ultimately say, hey, result in an acquittal in this particular case. And so the defense attorneys for Mr. Lafitte filed a new motion, and they argued that Murdaugh's incriminating statements in court constitute newly discovered evidence since it has been discovered since the end of Mr. Lafitte's trial. Because remember, that Mr. Lafitte's trial went to trial before Alex Murdaugh's case. The pleadings also argue that if Mr. Murdaugh's statements were introduced at a new trial, they would likely produce an acquittal. Well, the judge, U.S. District Court Judge Richard Mark Gergel, wasn't buying it. He stated, quote, Murdaugh is manifestly not a credible witness. Evidence offered during the defendant's trial established without question that Murdaugh is a serial liar and fraudster who stole from his clients and law partners, and the judge wrote in the order that he is not going to grant a new trial. So, therefore, now Mr. Murdaugh, the court notes, stands convicted of double homicide of his wife and son, and it's difficult to imagine a less credible witness under these circumstances. The court also said that the overwhelming majority view that post-trial evidence of a witness who refuses to testify at the defendant's trial is not newly discovered evidence under the federal rules, and Murdaugh's presently offered testimony is newly available but not newly discovered. So Mr. Lafitte just can't get a break. And even Alec Murdaugh, when he's trying to help his buddies, everybody believes that he is a liar. At least he's got all those new pen pals writing him saying what a great human being he is and that they're in love with him. So that'll help his fragile ego, no doubt, recover from the lambasting that the court gave him. And then finally today, our dumb criminal of the day. Please meet Mr. Boris Richard. He's only 21, but he made an unauthorized entry into the Smith Funeral Home late Friday night last week. Now, Richard, who lives about 9 miles from the business, made an entry into the embalming room with several corpses present post-autopsy. He then videotaped several of the corpses on his cell phone via FaceTime and was showing an acquaintance the corpse while the business was closed to the public. Now, Richard, it appears, may have some connection to the business, but his bosses weren't impressed, and they say that he's not really an official worker and had been advised that he was not supposed to gain entry into the embalming room without consent. So he's been arrested on felony unauthorized entry charged, and Mr. Richard exercised his rights to remain silent when questioned by police, and he was released pending posting a $1,500 bond. Now, that's just weird. Who wants to go into a funeral home at night when you don't work there to take videos of bodies to be embalmed? Just a little weird. Now, the only thing that I could possibly think of what this person was doing was it comes from a case that I had many, many years ago. And the clients, after committing multiple murders and various other heinous crimes, said they really didn't remember a whole lot because they were doing PCP, smoking PCP, dipped in embalming fluid, and they called it SHRM. So I'm not sure if old Richard was in there looking for some embalming fluid to dip his PCP into before he smoked it, or if he's just weird and creepy. But either way, sir, you are our dumb criminal of the day. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm telling you, you got to listen to the actual proceedings in the Lori Vallow matter. Spend your weekend listening to all the testimony presented. The stuff that I've heard so far, it's bizarre. It is bizarre. And I know a lot of it's not new. We've been talking about it for years now. I was kind of expecting a little bit more, but hey, this is what they've got. And it's all about these weird beliefs that Chad Daybell and Lori Vallow possessed, and why the prosecution believes Lori Vallow is responsible, along with Chad Daybell, for the death of JJ and Ty Lee. Anyway, that's all we have for you today. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time on Crime Talk.